Okay, we are in Hilchos Teshuva, Perek Tes, the 9th chapter. We have really today, Sunday and Monday, and the 10th chapter is a very great deal of important fundamental material. So I'm going to go through the rest of chapter 9 fairly quickly. The basic idea we saw last time. Basic idea is that since the Rambam has told us the reward, capital R, for a good spiritual record is life in the world to come, and the punishment, capital P, for those who have a bad spiritual record is losing out on the world to come, how is it that in the Torah and in the prophets there are many, many threats and promises about consequences in this world, that if you follow the mitzvos and do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do, then there'll be peace and prosperity and health and long life and many children and so forth and so on. And if you violate the commandments, then there'll be war and destruction and sickness and death. And that's all in this world. And you're telling me, says the Rambam, you're telling me that reward is in the next world and punishment is losing out in the next world. So what are all these promises in this world? And the Rambam says that they're true, and they did happen, and they will happen, and they're not sof sachar. They're not the end of the sachar, the reward. So if they're not the end, that means they are the beginning. So in what way are they the beginning? And the Rambam will tell us in great detail in what way they are the beginning. So this is about a third of the way into the first long section. And he says this is the way the matter should be understood. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah. This is a tree of life. I told you that there are doubles here. Everyone who does what's written in it and knows him or it with complete understanding, through doing what it says and understanding what it teaches, he merits the world to come. According to the greatness of his actions and the greatness of his wisdom, a double, actions and wisdom. Notice these two phrases, actions come first and wisdom comes second. Actions first and wisdom second. Hello, those who think he's really a philosopher and everything's talking about knowledge, and knowledge is what to get you into the world to come and so forth and so on. He's waving the flag and telling you you're wrong. No, Meisim come first and knowledge comes second, and both of them are necessary. That determines how much merit he has, how much what his reward is in the world to come. And the Torah promised us that if we do it with joy, hello, we're talking about an emotion of joy. Didn't see that in Aristotle last time I checked. Uvetovas nefesh, with a generous spirit. V'nege b'chachma tamid. And we'll constantly be meditating on this wisdom that the Torah teaches, then, if we do that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remove from us all the things that prevent us from performing it, like sickness and war and famine and things similar to that. And he will shower upon us all the goods that strengthen our hands to do all the Torah, to do, not to know and to understand, but to do, like having enough physical support to be satisfied with, and peace, and enough money so that we don't have to involve ourselves in the needs of the body, but we should sit or dwell. Panui means without care and without restrictions, without responsibilities, to learn the wisdom of the Torah and to do the mitzvos, again the double, but this time wisdom first and doing second, so that we can earn the reward of life in the world to come. So, the bottom line is the answer is what I told you last time. It's like someone does a favor for the king, and the king says, I'm going to give you a reward. Here are the keys to the warehouse. Go and take any 2 packages from the warehouse you like. That's my reward to you. Imagine the guy saying, what a lousy deal. 3 pieces of metal? That's all he gives me? What can I do with the 3 pieces of metal? Well, that's true. You can't do anything with the 3 pieces of metal except open the door to the warehouse and take out the packages. That you can do. Are the 3 pieces of metal really worthless? I don't think so. But you're not meant to eat them. You're meant to use them to get what's really valuable. So if someone said, if you do this for me, I promise you the keys to the warehouse, what are you promising me pieces of metal for? That would be dumb. So that means that the thing that's being promised is a means to the ultimate reward. All the promises that you have in the Torah of benefits in this world are benefits that are a means to being happy, being healthy and unpreoccupied and without pressure and without distraction, to perform the Torah's mitzvos, to study its wisdom, by which you will get into the world to come. So the benefits that are predicted in this world for complying with the Torah are like the keys to the warehouse. Are they valuable? Yes, they are. But they're not intrinsically valuable. They're extrinsically valuable, like $100 bills. I mean American dollars, not New Zealand dollars, not Australian dollars. $100 bills are valuable, even though they're only pieces of paper, because they get you things of value. So that's why the promises are here, and that's why it's not sof scharan. It is a reward, but of course, if you get stuck in the peace and the prosperity and the scuba diving and the airplane rides and so forth and so on, then you're eating the keys instead of going to the warehouse. You've lost the whole message. That's what the meaning of these promises is. Yeah.
I had a question. The key, is it the same if the key is used? Because I know the Torah says that the only gate that's open is the gate of tears. Is that the same key that applies to kind of reach?
No, but I'm not using the word key from our literature. That's my invented analogy. So I'm not making reference to the use of key in our literature. So pointing out that the keys to the warehouse is valuable as a means to get into the warehouse. Here, all these promises for this world are promises of means by which you'll get into Olam Haba. So it's not that they're not valuable. It's not even that they're not tovos. He used the word tovos. But tov is ambiguous between intrinsically valuable and extrinsically valuable. Here, these promises for this world are extrinsically valuable. They are a means to get into the world to come. So I think that's quite a clear idea. So it says, and thus the Torah informed us that if we abandon the Torah consciously, deliberately, medatenu, and we will occupy ourselves with the empty values that are part of the physical world, in time, he says, like it says, the Jewish people became fat and they kicked away the Torah. Then the true judge will take away from us, from the people who are abandoning the Torah, all these goods of this world, which are meant to strengthen their hands. Live out, then they're going to kick, and arose and brings down upon them all the things which prevent them from acquiring the world to come. Now, prevent here means makes it hard. It's very rare for Kodesh Baruch Hu to really make it impossible to acquire, because it's going to make it very hard. And the purpose of that is that they should be lost in their wickedness, because if they don't earn the world to come, then they're not going to be there, and they're just going to disappear. And he quotes verses that express this idea. So he says, the consequences, the explanation of all these blessings and curses is on this theme. If you serve Hashem, again, besimcha, with joy. And you preserved his way. That means you didn't do things that were forbidden. Then he will shower upon you the blessings that are in it, and he will distance the curses that are in it, so that you'll be free to become wise through the Torah and to occupy yourself with it, so that you'll be able to earn the world to come. And v'yitav lechem le'olam shekolo tov. God will benefit you in the world that is all good. And you'll lengthen your days in the world that is all long. Those are quotations from the Talmud. And then he says, it's a phrase that's echoed in other places, through following the Torah, you will then merit two worlds. You'll merit a world of comfort and happiness and joy here, and through your use of that comfort, happiness, and joy to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you'll get the world to come as well. Of course, the one is only a means. Good life in this world, and which brings you to the world to come. And if a person does not acquire the wisdom of the Torah and the good actions, again, both, not one, just wisdom, not just philosophy, then he has nothing with which he can earn the world to come. So the clear message here is you can study all the philosophy you want, master all the philosophy you want, you won't be there. Sorry. He says the same thing in the Guide of the Perplexed. Don't tell me this was written for the rabbis. Again, the academic fools said do, because he says this in the very end of the end of the Sefer, and he says his treatment of Job in part 3, chapters 23 and 24, I think. Because there's no action that will enable you to get it in after you die. That has to be done in this world. That's an interesting principle, which he mentions a few times, doesn't explain in detail, and I'm not going to talk about it now because I haven't got time before the end of the Zman. And if you abandon HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you spend your time eating and drinking and he speaks of znus, forbidden sexual relations, like that, just wallowing in physical pleasures, then God will bring upon you all the curses, and He'll take away all the blessings, so that you'll spend your days. You're spending your days in orgies and like a gourmand, not a gourmet. And God says, okay, you want to spend your days immersed in the physical? I'll arrange it for you. You'll be chased by enemies, and you'll be starving, and you'll have diseases that you'll have to worry about trying to cure, and be hiding from the enemy. You'll be immersed in the physical, just not the way you hoped and not the way you wanted, but that's what immersed in the physical is worth. And then you'll taste it in its true visage, its true appearance. And then of course, you won't be able to do mitzvahs and acquire the wisdom of the Torah. And then you'll have lost both worlds. Because when a person is tarud, he's engaged with and tied to and preoccupied with this world, with sickness and war and famine, then he's not going to involve himself with wisdom and not with mitzvah. Wisdom and mitzvah, not wisdom alone, not just philosophy. How many times does he have to say it so that you get the idea? That's how you get into the world to come. You think that some people would have gotten the message. Okay, so now, because of this, the whole of the Jewish people, their prophets and their sages desired the Mashiach. We're all hoping and waiting for the Mashiach. We desire that the Mashiach should come. Why? What are we anticipating in the time of the Mashiach that we desire? so that we will have respite from the evil kingdoms that have reigned over us, that do not allow the Jewish people to occupy themselves with Torah and mitzvos and actions in an appropriate way. No, we'll be relieved of that. They'll be calm and peaceful, and they will be able to excel in wisdom in order to merit the world to come. Because in those days, Deya and Chochmah and Emes will be increased, will be magnified, will be greatly enhanced. Now, Deya and Chochmah are two different words for understanding, and Emes means appreciation of reality. Shnema ki moloch haaretz Deya as Hashem. The earth will be full of God, of knowledge of God. V'ne'emar v'lo yildu ish es achiv ish es re'ehu. People won't have to teach each other anymore. People won't ask questions of one another because the knowledge will be ubiquitous. Everyone will have it. Asarosi es leva evim b'sarchem. I will take away this stony heart from your flesh, because then in those days there'll be a king of the ancestry of King David, great in wisdom and with great power, and there'll be a great prophet. He will be a great prophet, close to the level of Moses. No one matches Moses, not before Moses nor after Moses. I would stress this because you hear in some quarters that the Mashiach could be greater than Moses. I've heard that actually said. Well, don't pin it on the Rambam. V'fichach yulei kol adam v'yora osam derech Hashem. He, the King David, this king from the house of David, will teach the people and explain to them the way which Hashem wants us to go. Going, even the non-Jews will come to hear him. And he quotes the verses for that. V'sof kulob, in contrast to what he said earlier, that what the promises of this world are not sof schar. The sof schar really is v'atova achrona shein hefsek lo giro, the final good, which has no limit, no cessation, nothing, no detract, nothing missing from it, is life in the world to come. So the whole of the Jewish people desired the time of the Mashiach, because at that time you'll be able to do what is necessary to get into the world to come, not for its own sake. The world of the Mashiach is this world, and the world will continue to operate the way it normally operates. All the laws of nature will be in place. Only we will have our own kingdom. We will not be under the control of other nations. He quotes a mimer from the Gemara in the name of, which is the name of Shmuel. The great early sages said, "Ein ben olam hazeh Mashiach al shiur malchus bilvad." The only difference between this world, meaning our present phase of history, and the world of the Mashiach, the time of the Mashiach, is the fact that we are now under the control of foreign nations, and then we will not be under their control. But everything else, agriculture and business and investment and markets and according to the Rambam, life and death, and the laws of nature will go on forever. Rambam holds they will go on forever. Unlike the vast majority of our positions, which say the 6,000 year limit, the Rambam rejects the 6,000 year limit. Yeah.
Is there a source in Torah in Mashiach?
For what?
Mashiach?
Well, there are definitely hints of the Nevi'im, the prophets, talk about that in the future certain sorts of things will happen. They don't use the word Mashiach. The word Mashiach, I know because of the Havdal El Havdal's Christianity, made a big deal out of the word Messiah. The word Messiah means anointed. We anointed many of our kings. We sometimes anointed the king, Kohen Gadol. I mean, anointed with oil, which shows that you are appointed to a specific position. The Messiah becomes like the Son of God or God Himself, and so on and so on. The word has no such connotations in its literal usage. It just means the anointed one. And there are many who were anointed. We anointed all the vessels in the temple to inaugurate them into divine service. You know, they weren't saviors, they weren't God. So you can't build it on the word. It's a concept, but you can't build it on the meaning of the word. Okay, that's the end of the 9th chapter. Now let's start the 10th chapter. And there are very many things we'll just have to scratch the surface today and the next 2 times. A person should not say, behold, I will do the mitzvahs of the Torah, and I will occupy myself with its wisdom. Again, the doublet, doing mitzvahs and wisdom, not one alone. I will do them so that I will receive all the blessings that are written in it. Those blessings, as you just explained, are in this world. Or so that I will merit life in the world to come. Neither one. A person should not say that he's doing the mitzvahs for either of those benefits. Also, he should not say that I will separate myself from the transgressions that the Torah prohibits, in order, I should be saved from the curses written in the Torah, or so that I will not be cut off in the world to come. Don't say that. Okay, so my motivation for keeping mitzvahs is not to get the benefits of this world, nor to get the world to come. And my care of not violating prohibitions is not to avoid the curses in this world, nor to avoid losing the world to come. So why am I doing it? It's not appropriate to serve God in this way. He's serving God out of fear and or awe. The word in Hebrew is ambiguous, and the Rambam wrote this work in Hebrew. Now, let's be very careful. He says it's not appropriate, ra'ui. He says because it's a way of doing it out of fear and awe. And it is not the level of the prophets, not the level of the sages. Now let's see. If it's not the level of prophets and sages, how bad can it be? You know, what you're being told is, it's not the best. If you do this, it's not the best. Okay, so it's not the best. It's not 98% out of 100. Gotcha. Right? Could it be 82%? Is that bad? Is that rejected? Maybe it's not as good as 98%, but if the contrast is, if you serve God out of awe and fear, you're not on the level of Isaiah, and you're not on the level of Abraham. Okay. But that seems to be leaving a lot of room for people who are good people who are valuable people. What they're doing is accepted. They will be rewarded. You're just not on the highest possible level. So that's exactly what the Rambam is saying. So he says, the people who serve God in this way, out of fear and or awe, are only ignorant people. Now, I'd have to cross this barrier. He says, women and children. Now listen to why he says this. Because they are instructed to serve God out of yira. They're instructed, they're told to do this. So it can't be wrong, it can't be bad, it can't be destructive. They're told to do this until their understanding grows, and then they will serve God out of love, including the women and the children. So all that's being said about women here is that their education takes more time. That's all. Doesn't say anything that they're intrinsically incapable or they're inferior, but it takes more time. And they too can achieve the same level that men can achieve. So when he says ein ra'ui, and you hear the translation, it's not appropriate, you think, so don't do that. No, that's wrong. It means only that you're not on the highest level. You shouldn't be satisfied with that level. You should learn, stretch yourself, train yourself to transcend that level, because it's not the best level. That's all he's saying, yeah.
So, serving God out of love would be better than serving God out of fear or awe.
100%. 100%. Now this is discussed in all the Rishonim. All the Rishonim talk about this. There are different senses of love and different senses of fear and awe, and the distinctions are made, and then it's quite a complex subject. The Rambam is on record consistently, without any ambiguity, that serving God out of fear and awe is not on a par with fearing God out of love. And fearing God out of love is the highest level, as he will explain now in detail. Yeah.
Does this mean that it's harder for
No, I wouldn't say it's harder. No, I wouldn't. It's just going to take more time, because less time is spent on their education, so it takes longer for them to absorb the education. Now, I want to raise a question here. This bothered me for many years, and similar to what I have told you on previous occasions, I thought up a very clever, deep philosophical answer, and then I realized that you don't need my deep philosophical answer. It's probably not true anyway, and there's a much easier way to explain it, which I learned from a secular philosopher. Let's picture what the Rambam is saying here. Taiva. Taiva means desire, strong desire. If a person does something out of taiva and you ask him why he's doing it, and he says, I'm doing it because I want to do it, and if you ask him, why do you want to do it? He says, don't ask dumb questions. I want it. I want it. That's it. I don't want it for something else. I want it for it. Taiva is like that kind of fixation on something that you want for its own sake. So now, the Rambam is telling us that the prophets and the sages all had this desire for the world to come. So apparently, it's appropriate to have that desire. He's not criticizing them. He said in the previous chapter, he said that King David had that desire for the world to come. So he's telling me on the one hand that this kind of taiva for the world to come is appropriate. The greatest people had it, number one. Now, number two, he's telling me that when you keep the mitzvos and study Torah and absorb its wisdom, don't do that for the sake of the world to come. Don't do it for the sake of the world to come. Do it out of love of God. Is it really possible? I'm considering doing Q. I think to myself, yeah, but Q will make me a lot of money. And I want money. Now, are there any other reasons for doing Q? Yeah, Q is good. Q is just. Oh, that's important. No question about it. It's good, it's just. Okay, so, the world is a complex place. I have lots of reasons for doing Q. It's good, it's just, it makes money, right? Let's say that my motivation to do it because it's good and just is so strong that even if I didn't get money, I would do it. That's good. That means I'm a moral person. I care about morality, I care about values, and I'm willing to act on them. Fine. But now it does make money, and I want money. Is it possible to say that when I do it, I'm not doing it for the money? I mean, I want the money. A desire is something that motivates you, almost by definition. And I'm doing Q, and it's going to get me money, it's going to get me what I desire. How can you tell me that the desire for money shouldn't motivate me? If you tell me that I should have enough motivation to do it for the sake of the fact that it's good and just, I hear that. And I understand that it's possible to do that. But that would be in addition to my desire for the money, and they'll both be motivating me. And because I'm doing it out of the motivation of goodness and justice, in addition to money, and I would do it for goodness and justice without the money, that seems to qualify me as a perfectly moral person. The Rambam says, no, not good enough. Don't do it for the money. So I have two questions. Why is doing it for the money bad? And number two, how can you avoid it? If you have a desire for something and you know that doing Q will give you what you desire, how can you say, but do it, but don't do it, even in part because of the desire? When you know a desire is something that pushes you to do what will get you what you desire. How can you avoid it? That's the problem that bothered me. I think it's a legitimate problem. Even though I didn't see the commentaries talk about it, it's a legitimate philosophical problem. The answer that I learned from John Searle, who was a very eminent philosopher, I don't agree with him with everything, but he's a very eminent philosopher, works like this. The picture that's bothering us is the picture that when you have a desire, that desire is a motivator, and when you do something that will get you what you desire, that desire must be exerting a push on you, because that's what desires do. Desires motivate you to act to get what the desire is aimed at. He said that picture, when you generalize it, you're a bundle of desires, and all the desires push you, and you can't ignore the push of any particular desire, because it's a real factor pushing you to act. That picture contradicts free will altogether. That picture contradicts free will altogether. The Rambam spent a lot of time. We went through it in several shurim, where he says that free will is an absolute cornerstone of the Torah. Says Cyril, free will requires the ability to ignore a desire and ignore its motivation so that it's not part of what moves you to do an action. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck denying free will altogether. And he gives the following example. Now imagine two guys who go to college together. They're buddies. They do things together, and they support one another, they help one another, and they like each other. After they leave college, they part ways, they go to different places, get different jobs, but they keep in touch. They keep in touch, and they maintain their friendship, and they have a kind of compact that if one needs something, the other will help him. And they do. It goes on for 30 years. After 30 years, one of them is running for president of the United States. He's a candidate for president. The other one is thinking, I'm a voter, should I vote for him? We're the friends, and we have this compact that we do for each other when they need, when each one needs, the other one does, it helps him. So the other friend says, let's take a look at the policies of my friend and the policies of the other candidate. He goes through it and he finds that the other candidate's policies are a little bit better than the policies of his friend. So let's say on a numerical rating that the policies of his friend are 80 and the policies of the other guy are 84. Now he says to himself, if I were just voting for candidates, if this one wasn't my friend, I would vote for the guy with 84 because he has somewhat better policies. But this was my friend. So if I take the 84 versus the 80 my friend has, and add my friendship to the 80 of his policies, the two together get him a motivational score of 86. And therefore, I should vote for my friend. Because the friendship is larger than the difference in the value of the policies, right? And here's Cyril's crucial move, then he says, yeah, but listen, this is President of the United States. That's important. I think being President of the United States is more important than our friendship. I don't think our friendship should play any role in voting for the President of the United States. So I'm going to vote for the other guy anyway. So what is he doing? He still has the friendship. He's still motivated to help his friend, but he says, my judgment is that in this case, that motivation shouldn't apply because it shouldn't have any effect on who you vote for president. That's an example of where, in the context of making a free decision, one part of the free decision is to simply turn your back on a desire, which is motivating you, but not in this case, and say, I'm not going to act on the basis of that desire. That's part of the apparatus of free will. So here, this 21st century philosopher has this idea, which is a fairly simple idea. I think that can be used to explain what the Rambam is talking about here. All the greatest Jews had a taiva for the world to come. And they know that by doing Torah mitzvahs, they're going to get into the world to come. But when the highest way of serving God is when you make the decision to serve God, you cancel out that motivation. You don't take that motivation into account. You do it only out of love for God. And that means that the motivation has to be pure. And this is a very high level of purity, as I said, because it rules out even two equally powerful motivations, one out of love of God and another for something other than love of God. It rules that out. Let me just finish one remark and then we'll discuss it till the end of the hour. And this really is a very remarkable thing to say because there's a Gemara in Psachim which describes a case where a person has two motivations for doing something. One, to do a mitzvah, and one, selfish. And the Gemara raises the question whether doing the mitzvah can be counted upon for protection from certain types of danger. And the Gemara concludes that if he would do the mitzvah, even if it didn't have the benefit, then the fact that he also was doing it for the benefit, and he would do it for the benefit without the mitzvah also. So they're equal in that respect. Each one is enough by itself to get him to do the action. He still gets the benefit of the protection, and Rashi calls it lishma. He says he's doing it lishma, which means for the sake of the mitzvah itself, even though there's another motivation. So if you have that going on record, and the Rambam is telling you, yes, it counts as lishma, and yes, you'll get protection, but it's still not ideal. It's still not ideal. Ideal would be to cancel out even that accompanying motivation of something selfish, like the world to come, which is worthy of desire, but cancel it out. Rambam is telling you here that you have to have absolute purity of motivation to serve God on the highest possible level. But again, this is only the highest possible level. It doesn't mean that if you're not doing that, that your mitzvahs aren't counted. They are counted and they're rewarded, and you count as a tzaddik and so forth and so on. Just you're on the highest possible level. Yeah, you had a question.
Yeah. So, in regards to the example you gave, let's say with the president case, wouldn't we say that desire to, vote, I guess, in a moral manner and not vote based on friendships, that would just overpower the desire to vote for your friend, and therefore you're still being motivated by desires at the end of the day?
Yeah. So this is a standard move in this kind of discussion. The standard move is to say you had a desire to do the moral thing, and that cancels out the desire for helping your friend, and so on and so on. The response to this standard move, the standard response is you're just creating desires. You're not arguing the point. You're just assuming the point and inventing desires in order to defend yourself, but you're not giving anyone any reason to believe it. You invent this desire only because otherwise you're going to lose your position. No independent, no psychologist is going to find this desire. If you makes a list of the person's desires, you just put it in. Who made this argument on a book on altruism? Two very good authors. Anyway, it's when you say couldn't you say, those words always are, isn't this possible? And the answer is, yeah, it's possible, but I have absolutely no reason to think that it's true. You could say there's a desire, you could say what you want, but there's no reason to think that the desires work out that way. Yeah.
So following these elements, should we say that Teshuva Shlema is serving Hashem out of love? When you really serve Hashem out of love, and any other motivation is
Teshuva Shlema. I mean, I wouldn't put Teshuva in here. The Teshuva is one mitzvah, but serving God is the totality of all the mitzvahs and learning the wisdom of the Torah. Why?
Right, but like when you make Teshuva Shlema, when you perform the mitzvahs, like inside of a mitzvah, you make Teshuva that you make it out of love. Like that's like a Teshuva.
Teshuva is one mitzvah. He's talking about all the mitzvahs. So of course you should do Teshuva out of love, and you should put tefillin on out of love, and you should daven out of love, and you should give charity out of love, all of them. I wouldn't single out Teshuva, even though it's Hilchos Teshuva, but he doesn't single out Teshuva and say that it should be done out of love. He makes a completely general statement here. There's no reason to single it out and say it's special. It's a mitzvah, that's all.
But I mean, because I see, like, let's say, do I have to? We already talked about this before. That somehow, let's say, you put tefillin just because it's the Torah tells you to do it, so you. But then, while you develop your performance of the mitzvah, that's making teshuva into the mitzvah.
What teshuva? The teshuva is when you do something wrong. We're not talking the same language now. Teshuva is how you fix up a crime, an avera, a transgression.
So how would we call the procedure of transforming the performance of a mitzvah from obligation into love?
But transforming it from obligation into love. I mean, I don't know what more words you need. He talks about doing it out of yira, out of awe and fear, and that's a motivation. And then the higher motivation is out of love. You want as a recipe how you can work with your psychology to develop it. He has that in the second chapter of Yeshivat Ohr. I mean, but I don't hear the question here. Yeah.
How would this relate to getting married? If there's a desire for let's say a man and woman are dating, and there's a strong desire on the man's part for a woman, and the desire could be for physical intimacy or for company. Is it required to separate that? Because it's a mitzvah to get married, it's a mitzvah to have children. So, from what I understand, so are we supposed to separate that desire in order to get married, or?
Yeah, I think that's right. The natural desires that you have for let's say in marriage are ultimately, not all of them. Some are purely selfish desires, and some are not selfish, but they are disconnected from your relationship with God. And what he's telling you here is that your motivation should be only to serve God. But now listen carefully, as he's going to say in the next paragraph. It doesn't mean that, let's go back and review. We said that having a desire for the world to come is good. It's good to have that desire. You should have that desire. All the prophets and sages of the Jewish people had the desire for the world to come. And when you do the mitzvos, the result will be the world to come. And you will get what you desire. And therefore you will enjoy it. All of that is right and good. No one's telling you to kill the desire. The desire is a good thing to have. And desire means there'll be pleasure in it. But that's not why you do it. It's not why you do it. See? That's the point. You know, it's, if the queen invites you to a ceremonial dinner at the palace, right? There are 100 million citizens, and she's invited 16 people, and you're one of them, right? Well, there'll be very good food there because it's the queen's palace, but you're not going for the food. You enjoy food, and you like good food, but you're not going for the food, you're going because the queen invited you. So it doesn't mean you won't enjoy it when you're there, but yes, why are you going? You say, isn't it partly for the queen and partly for the food? He says, oh, don't be stupid. I'm going to the queen. 16 out of 100 million. I'm thinking about the food. It's not motivating me. It's not pushing me. I'm not on the map.
That's the ideal.
That's the ideal, right?
That there's a let's say there's a strong desire for a woman from a man when they're dating. The desire, it's okay for it that it's there, but the ideally the reason to want to get married, for example, to that woman is to do the mitzvah. That's
right. That's exactly right. The desire's there, the pleasure will be there. All of that's fine, but when you're sort of introspecting, what's my goal in doing this, and what's motivating me to do it? It's the love of God. And again, this is an ideal, and well, he'll explain that in the next. Let's just take a little bit more of the text. Ha'oved me'ava, person who serves out of love, occupies himself with Torah and mitzvos and actions, not just wisdom, walks in the ways of wisdom, not because of anything in the world, not because of fear of evil that will overtake him if he doesn't, and not in order to inherit good. Ella, here are the crucial words, Osa ha'emes v'bnei shu emes. He does the emes because it's emes, v'sova tova lavo, and in the end the good will come. He puts it right in. It's there. It will come and you'll have it. It's appropriate that you should have it. But now, I just want to make a remark here. He says, you'll do the emes because it's emes. Now, let's pretend you never heard the word emes before. You'll do Q because it's Q. And now I ask you, you're going to do Q because it is Q. Would you understand that the word Q, the letter Q could be replaced by the word truth? He does truth because it's truth. I don't know about you, but to my ear, that's gobbledygook. You don't do truth. Truth is not a thing you do. Truth is not a quality of actions. You don't say of actions, these actions are true actions, these are false actions. Actions are actions. They're profitable, they're good, they're evil, they're intelligent, they're stupid, but not true and false. True and false are qualities of beliefs, of statements, of linguistic, sentences, but not of actions. Now, the Rambam's Hebrew is basically biblical Hebrew. And if you take out a concordance, there's an essay of Rav Dessler who says that emes should not be translated as true, sheker should not be translated as false. They're mistranslations. And I resisted that essay for many years. So I said, why don't you just call a spade a spade? You know, sometimes you have to do things that are false, right? Because sometimes it's appropriate not to say things that are true. Don't say things that are false. You do say things that are false. Why don't you call a spade a spade? Then I overcame my inherent laziness, and I took out a concordance. I looked up the emes in the Tanakh, and I found that overwhelmingly it is a quality of actions. And then I thought, well, hey, you know, TRUE doesn't apply to actions. So maybe Rav Desta has something there, you know. So I learned to increase my respect for Rav Desta. And even when, let's say, a person says something, and you might qualify what he says as emes, it's ambiguous because when a person says something, there are two things going on. One is there's the thing he said, and the second is his saying it. His saying it is an action. So if you understand that emes is a quality of actions, from statements you can't prove opposite because you have both the action of saying it and what you said. This is the famous thing that when your wife asks you, how does my new hat look? You have to make a choice. You have to make a choice, right? You know, you say, well, to tell you the truth, it's really awful. That might be true. It could also be very stupid. Right? That might not be the right thing to say. You know, how's my souffle? You know, oh. Don't ever make it. Don't say that. Don't say that. You know, find a better way around it, right? So there's a difference between the TRUE as applied to what is being said versus evaluating saying it. And when you say that emes applies to a statement, it could be that emes applies to the saying action, not to the content said. So it's not a proof that emes is about propositions. We apply it to statements, not so. And even if ordinarily the action is successful if the content is true, but the question is what the word describes. Does it describe the success of the action? Or describe? So now the Rambam here says, now emes is roughly that which is ultimately real and eternal. Sheker is that which is illusory and also temporary. And by the way, although Chazal say there's a category called Meshana B'nei Hashalom, which literally means changing because of peace, change what you say to preserve the peace, they never say that you should be Mishaker. Never. The Pasuk says, Midvar Shecher Tirchak, distance yourself from Sheker, and as far as I'm aware, there are no exceptions to that. So if Meshana B'nei Hashalom means say something which isn't factually accurate for the sake of peace, and on the other hand, there's no excuse for sheker whatsoever, you can't translate sheker as not factually accurate. That would be an out-and-out contradiction. Sheker means contributing to illusion, to misunderstanding, to falsehood, and providing things which ultimately are going to be swept away. That's what sheker means. And that you're never supposed to do, under no conditions. So Rambam says, also, as with Yeshiva emes, this is an emblem of the fact that the word emes doesn't mean TRUE. Very, very important. Okay, now that he's going to qualify again in the next few lines. We'll get to that on Sunday, Yosef Hashem.